Welcome back, everybody, to His Heartbeat. Great to have y'all with us again this week. And I have a guest with me, Simone. I'm going to try it. Puccinelli.
Puccinelli, yeah.
Puccinelli, pretty close. Okay. And we have a common interest in Uganda. So welcome to our show, Simone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Sue.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
really
great.
excited to be here.
Good. Well, I know that God grabbed your heart way back when you were 20. Is that right? And
Yeah, well, I would say it really started in my childhood, but the ministry started when I was 20. So,
okay. Okay. So tell us from the childhood why you would say that.
yeah, so I grew up in church, and in our church, we had different children we sponsored through a smaller organization. And so I did grow up seeing that there was children in the world that were in need. And I just automatically had a drawing towards that. Um, I would actually play like orphanage with my dolls and stuff, wanting to take care of
Mm,
children that didn't have family.
okay.
And back in the 80s and the 90s when I was growing up, places like Uganda, the population was 90% of it was under the age of 18. So they definitely had a huge orphan crisis during that time. And the organization the church was supporting was working with those type of children. I also did a small fundraiser to send the kids underwear because I just felt like if they couldn't afford all these things, they probably also couldn't afford underwear. And my parents were just really supportive in letting me go on mission trips in middle school and high school. And in middle school, I actually attended an Acquire with Fire youth weekend conference. And there was a missionary there from India. And he shared stories of how children on the streets were so hungry, they were nursing from dogs.
Oh, wow.
And my heart broke, and I felt the Holy Spirit say, "You're going to help kids like that one day." So I
Mm,
really grew up wanting to be a missionary, do missions, and help kids. In between the summer in between my junior and senior year of high school, I actually traveled to Africa. I went to Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda with that organization that the church had been supporting. And I shadowed the leader who was already getting in her very elderly age, like late 70s, early 80s. And I wanted to watch how this all actually worked in practice. I'm a very entrepreneurial spirit business person, and I was like, okay, I understand what it all looks like, but like like how does that actually work? Like how do we actually help people? And so I got to watch her model and learn from her a lot of things to do and not to do. And then when I was 20, she sent me an email
mm,
saying that there was another Ugandan couple that were reaching out for help and she couldn't help any more schools. And so I said, that's fine. You can put us in contact. And the gentleman emailed me that him and his wife, which the wife actually grew up in one of the orphanages she supported, but were trying to take kids off the street. They both had teaching certificates and help the kids that couldn't afford to go to school. And if they didn't get $500 to cover the rent for the whole year of the building, it was only
wow.
$500 for the whole year.
Wow.
And this was 2010. And I just felt the Lord say, this is what I want you to do with your life. So I do believe all along he was preparing my heart, planted part of teeny tiny part of his heart because nobody could handle his whole heart, but teeny part of his heart in my heart for specifically for children in need. And I had no idea what that looked like. For most of my life, I thought I was going to be doing like on the field mission work
Hmm.
or working for another nonprofit. And that's something I had to like work through in the sense of like, there's so many different nonprofits in the world. Why do I need to start one? And God was like, there are a lot of nonprofits, there are a lot of ministry, but no one's helping these kids. No one's coming to help these specific kids. And so that was around January 2010. By March, I had the nonprofit set up and the 500 raised. And then that December, I actually flew over there and met the kids who were, you drive up on the red dirt roads out into the village, and we turned into the school, and you could just immediately see the kids that were definitely going hungry, very,
Oh.
very small arms. You could see the funguses growing in their hair. They didn't have shoes, so they had parasites on their feet.
Mm.
Just completely devastating scenario. They during lunchtime they lined up the kids and they just bought the porridge that they could for that day. And when they ran out, they ran out. And so I saw on that trip God's vision for their lives versus the enemy's vision for their lives. And it was tattooed on my heart. And there was just no turning back after that to help
Mm.
those kids.
That's awesome. So you were only 20?
I was 20 when I went over there and started the
Okay. So did you go to college or you just jumped right in out of high school or what?
No, I was actually in my sophomore year of college
Okay.
when I started Simone's Kids, but I did get a business degree from Lee University, which is in Tennessee. So
Okay.
I did my time at college. Yeah.
Okay. And so since you started this nonprofit, what do you call it, by the way?
It's Simone's Kids International.
Okay. And then I mean that's a lot to put that together. You had to have a board, right?
Hmm.
You had to go through all the whole process. Did you get help for that, or you just kind of researched on your own and then found friends to help, or what?
The majority of it I did all on my own, looking at what needed to be done. I did find uh, two lawyers help me with the filing of the 501c3 process. I did fill out all the paperwork, and then like they came back with more questions. So I did end up hiring a lawyer, maybe for 300-400 bucks, to fix the things that I did wrong. And then an accountant, I found an accountant, which was a really cool story. I was telling a friend about me starting a nonprofit, and they said, well, my dad is an accountant. And so she told her dad about it, and her dad lived in Texas. And then her dad called a friend in Georgia because it's the 501c3 and the state registration is out of Georgia. So finding a CPA in Georgia is ideal. And so this was all going behind the scenes after I had told my friend that I needed an accountant to make sure I was doing things correctly. Well, the CPA called me and said, I heard about what you're doing and I feel led to help you. And so we had a phone conversation about what I wanted to do. And 16 years later, he is still does it does all my 990s and all my accounting for free, and
Wow.
is some of my best supporters. But it was totally just like a God connection.
Mm.
He's out of Alpharetta. I was at college in Tennessee, and him and his wife talked about it, and he was just like, I don't know, this young girl is like, maybe we should bet on her. As you may know, like it is really hard to find professionals to donate their time and stuff, lawyers, and
Mhm.
I still haven't found a lawyer to serve on the board.
Mhm.
But we do have some good lawyers out of Atlanta that professionalize in nonprofits and international nonprofits. So we can dot all our I's and cross all our T's. As
That's good.
you may know that it is a lot of there's a lot of back end work that is
Hmm.
very unromantic.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Yeah.
Audits and accounting and all the
For,
stuff that you have to do for accountability purposes. But
yeah. Yeah.
so I
So,
did it mostly on my own, but then lots of people surrounded me over time for sure.
okay. So, did you just start out getting the word out through like your church or different college friends, or how did you pull together a board and fund funds, supporters?
Well, primarily was at first it was like college-based fundraisers. In 2010, Facebook was started in 2008. In 2010, I saw the really big potential to raise money through that.
Mm,
Nowadays, it's a little saturated, and so people can't raise as much money. But back then, it was like a brand new idea. And being in
mm,
college, and being brand new, I had the advantage of just being able to do whatever I wanted. So I was able to really push out videos and information through social media. And it was a brand new thing, like big organizations were doing it. So
mm.
a lot of my beginning growth happened through social media.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So then how did that work over in Africa? Like, is this couple running it, or do you spend a fair amount of time there, or how's that worked out?
Yeah. So what I learned and what I decided was that Simone's Kids International would have their own NGO status in Uganda. So I say but Simone's Kids International here has a legal branch entity there and is ran by the organization. So
Hmm.
all the land we bought, all the buildings we've built, everything is owned and operated by Simone's Kids. So that couple did work with us for several years because what they had done was trying to start a school and stuff. But when I came in, I actually bought land and built buildings and started the school. And so a lot has changed since the beginning with the structure and everything. But it they definitely did a lot of the like grassroots work in the beginning, and then we just deviated from each other over time. But
Okay.
yeah, it's ran. We right now we have a chief program officer who is over the program side of things, and we have the chief operating officer that's over the business side of things over there. And the chief operating officer is American, but he just moved back after almost 10 years. So now we're trying to find his replacement. It's an interesting position because you want to have to live in Uganda, but you also have to be good at business and you also have to be a good missionary.
Mm.
So, and you also want to have to not get paid. So, it's an interesting position, but we tried having just one head over there that was a national, and that didn't really work out well. And then we tried having, an American over there as the head, and then that did not work out very well. And we decided that really just one person over there in charge of the whole structure. Um, we needed to balance out the authority of to divvy up those two responsibilities. And so I serve as the CEO of the NGO over there, over the COO and the CPO. And then there's 113 other employees that run the programs.
Wow.
They're all Ugandan.
Okay. So it's obviously grown a lot. So how many locations and kids do you have?
We have just the one school.
Okay.
It is a primary school and a high school with a medical clinic on campus. Our main campus is about 13 acres, but we recently purchased 50 acres across the street that we're looking
Okay.
at
Okay.
doing different things like farming and building more classrooms and stuff. The original plan was to build out a whole new high school because the high school that we acquired was a neighboring school to the one we built, and it was failing. And that's a pretty cool story. And we acquired that, but it's like older and smaller. And to really thrive as a high school, we need to build out a whole new campus
Okay.
because high school is much more complicated than primary school.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have a lot of your employees are teachers, quite a few, I'd say.
Yes, a lot of teachers and then a lot of support staff. There's In the medical clinic, we have the director and the nurses, and then we have two cafeterias. We have like boarding facilities, so we have parent parents that oversee those. We have security team, maintenance teams, social. We have a large social worker department that really oversees the kids' care. And
Okay. So how many
yeah,
your kids say do some of them live there? It's an
we have
orphanage?
a boarding high school, so a lot of them live there while school's in session. But we've decided to have the model where if there is a child that doesn't have anywhere to stay, finding somewhere in the community for them to stay. So our theory behind the the way we offer assistance to orphan and vulnerable children is that a lot of them would be dropped off at an orphanage by an aunt or uncle, grandparent, because that orphanage, especially sponsored by an international organization, is going to provide that child health care. They're going to provide that child education. They're going to keep them clean. They're going to give them shoes. So that single grandmother, widowed grandmother, is like, okay, my son-in-law and daughter have died and left me this child, and they're going to go hungry, but I'll just leave them at an orphanage and they're going to make sure they get everything they need. So we go to that single grandmother and we're like, hey, if you keep them in that their home environment, of whatever that home environment looks like, we are providing that education, that health care, and any social services that they need. And sometimes we support it with some food, sometimes we don't. Every case is pretty unique in the sense of like we have some kids that we know need everything, and then we have some kids where we're like really push the single mother to buy the shoes and the backpack. So it's a unique model, almost like foster care in the United States, except for we're trying to most of the time you will find orphans have someone that could take care of them. They're just don't want to take on that financial responsibility. Being that in Uganda, the public education is just so rare. If you can't afford private school, you're just not going to go to school. So
Mhm.
that is our strategy in the community. In the community,
Okay, so when you first went there, you're seeing these orphan kids living at an orphanage, right? And they don't have
no,
food and no?
mm-mm. They were. It was a school.
Oh, it's a school. Okay. So you never intended to provide housing. You wanted to provide schooling and a means for kids who don't get enough food or, whatever, they're not cared for. Is that right?
Yeah, we definitely have kids, and it still happens today where you find they are not living with anybody, and we have to find them a housing situation.
Okay.
We are looking at boarding the younger students, but Uganda is a very intra-dependent culture, which is opposite of America, which is an independent culture. And so these kids that are raised purely in an orphanage, when they leave the orphanage, they don't have that community built up outside of the orphanage. And so it's important for them to stay within the community and not be completely isolated.
Mm,
So them going home on the holidays um, really helps them maintain those relationships with like a distant uncle or an aunt or someone that they can still have that intra
okay.
community basis.
Gotcha.
We have considered building an orphanage many times, and sometimes we're like, we may have to do this, it's not working, and then we usually can find someone. And honestly, it's really inspiring to watch some of these people in the community take in the kids that don't have anybody.
Mm. So how
So
is the attitude? It say in Muslim countries it's not always very positive, but of course Uganda's a Christian nation. What is the attitude that people have toward orphans in Uganda?
but I don't really want to speak for an entire culture. I do know that a lot of times stepchildren in particular, if a lady's husband dies, if she remarries, then that stepchild is really considered an outsider and treated very, very, very poorly. And in general, what people have shared with me that I have met in Uganda is that the orphan is a burden. They don't have anywhere to go.
Okay. So they
So
don't
definitely
think of them necessarily as inferior or stupid or anything or cursed or any crazy thing like that. Just more like, because maybe that community's not
it just
thriving
depends on
financially.
like it really honestly in my experience depends on like how deep into the villages that you go and the village mindsets versus like the closer you get to major cities like Kampala or Jinja or Entebbe, you're going to see less and less of that. You'll see more modern culture. And I would say the millennials in Uganda are very different than their previous generation. The previous generation, when I went in high school,
Mhm.
every woman would needed to be in a dress below their knees. Women were still kneeling to men. Uh, when I went, it was still legal. When I went in high school, it was man, I don't want to say something infactual, but it was very either it was still not unlawful to beat your wife. So it's I remember when I first started Simone's Kids in 2010, I was told that it just became a law that you can't beat your wife.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of old culture that is still very much alive. I think the deeper you get into villages, but I would say the millennial culture is extremely different than their previous culture because I remember when I went in high school, I had to wear dresses below the knee. And now you will, especially in Kampala and in the cities, the women will wear pants.
Mhm.
So that is just how time changes. The internet changes things a lot. There, people are really more aware of things going on in the world than they used to when I started, for sure.
Mhm. Okay. Gotcha.
So the
Yeah,
curse thing, I think, is definitely kind of people are realizing that's not a thing.
that's good. That's great. But yeah, like you said, if you get more into village life, it can be very different. Yeah, I've observed that too. So you had said in the bio that you sent me that, as it would be, there's been lots of different challenges along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, can you share some of those and how the Lord helped you get over those hurdles?
Which category of challenges? Financial challenges, health
I don't know.
challenges,
I mean, you tell me
local
what is it
challenges?
like to start a nonprofit as a young person and then continue to work through that, the whole
Mhm.
process you've been doing this for 16 years.
Hmm. You know, you want to not be like the Israelites in life, where you constantly like forget everything God has done. But I feel like there's a lot of times where I'm really nervous, like we're not going to get enough funding for this year, or somebody uh, they took us to court and they forged documents with my name on it, and I could
Oh,
have lost the whole school. And so that was almost a full year flying back and forth just for court, which was probably the hardest part of the
yeah.
ministry, feeling betrayed and um, like I really struggled with being like people were going to be like, I knew she was just a little girl that didn't know what she's doing.
Mm,
If I lost everything, even though we had set up things legally, it's their country.
mm,
And so if locals try to do something, what is a Ugandan judge gonna do in favor? You know? who they're going to pick, you know? And so I would say, like, even today, I feel like funding is down. And I'm like, I'm not sure if this is going to work. And you would think after 16 years of God like providing and showing up, that would not be an issue anymore. But there's been times where I got really, really sick and almost died, and then came back to the US and spent 2 weeks um, not eating and getting down to like 89 pounds.
Oh, wow. Did you have malaria or what was the sickness?
Well, when I was in Uganda, they said I had malaria. And then when I got here, they said I had typhoid.
Mm,
And so I could have had both,
mm.
but I don't know. I feel like the doctors in Uganda probably know more about the diseases there than
Yeah,
US
yeah.
doctors here. So I would think it was malaria, but I do have an autoimmune disease called lupus. And so I
Oh,
was on immunosuppressants. I'm still on immunosuppressants. So I can see how potentially getting malaria and my body being under attack could even possibly get more diseases while I'm that in that state. So
have you known you've had lupus for a lot of your life?
I was diagnosed when I was 12.
Okay. Because I mean,
So,
that's really brave of you to like dive in like that, because that is a very difficult disease. We had a gal, my first year in China, my second year on our team, and she has lupus, and I learned about some of those challenges, and
mhm,
I thought she was brave. I mean, she definitely needed times to rest. We
yeah,
couldn't go at the same pace, you know.
that's really been one of my life challenges in doing ministry and running a business and in like taking care of my kids is I've always felt like I couldn't do as much as everyone else.
Mhm.
For example, this past weekend, we took our kids to Atlanta to see this baseball team called the Savannah Bananas, which they kind of do like a show of baseball where they do tricks and stuff. Well, that weekend, plus I had wrist surgery last Thursday, but the wrist surgery Thursday and then going to Atlanta for the weekend, I was so tired Monday and Tuesday that I had like Monday I pushed through, but Tuesday I spent most of the day in bed because I was so tired. So I can be like, I get paid this salary and I do this stuff, but like I feel like I need to do everything like everyone else says, like work the 40 hours a week and make all the homemade meals. And I'm just tired and
Yeah.
more tired than everyone else. So through that journey, God has really taught me that like he can use my 2 hours and turn it into like I worked 40 hours.
Mm. That's
I
God's
just have to
grace, right?
I just have to trust him in continually rededicate the ministry to him because it's his ministry, not my ministry. On a regular basis, I'll be like, okay, I give it back. I can tell, like when I get anxious and stuff, I'll be like, okay, I give it back. It's your
Yeah.
ministry.
Yeah.
Um, so definitely health has been a struggle with trying to lead an organization.
Mm. Well, you're doing great. Do you have um, people who work for you here in the US to help
I
you?
do.
Okay.
I have someone that does a lot of administrative work, and then I have someone that does the marketing communication work. And
Okay.
then the person that just moved back from Uganda, he's coming on as vice president and he's going to help with fundraising and stuff like that. So
That's
I'm,
great.
I'm pretty excited about him. I've been praying for someone to help with fundraising for a long time. With being a mom of young kids, it's harder to like go out to all the different lunches and breakfasts and speaking engagements. So I
Hmm.
really needed
Hmm.
somebody like him.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I resonate with so much what you're saying, whether you're young or old. We're in our 20th year, and it's hard because in some ways, when your ministry does well, people hear about it, and then it ends up expanding, right? But then that requires more funds. And, so if we don't um, grow in the number of people who are helping to make that growth happen,
Hmm.
it just puts the load on the current people, right? And so I do understand we're in the midst of that. And I don't know if people are giving more or less, or I do know my parents' generation, I'll say, which was what do you call it? Like the after baby boomer, the one before baby boomer, whatever that was. Yeah.
Before baby boomers,
Yeah.
I think they're called the greatest generation
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
they fought in the wars and stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah.
went through the depression. They're just, at least in our area, are extremely giving. The Christians, and it
Oh wow.
depends on their churches, but so we've had seasons in our church where a lot of the older people left, especially after COVID, and a
Hmm.
huge amount of money went with them, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, I guess went to other churches or whatever, or their medical needs. And unfortunately, a lot of them really went downhill from COVID. But, then the millennials, they say, like each generation has been a little less giving. Now, I don't know about Gen Z. They seem to be just a radical different group they're seeing from millennials, and just, wanting to own homes and kind of going back to some more what used to be traditional roots, I think. So
Mm,
hard to say. Like, there's some pretty awesome movement of God going on with Gen Zs around the country, around the world, actually.
mm-hmm,
So that's exciting. So we'll see,
mm-hmm,
and when you have all these economic things going on and people get nervous, but yeah, praise God for people who come alongside their churches and nonprofits and churches that come alongside missions and
mm-hmm,
help. And so thankful. One thing that I like you keep saying, and I love that, not keep, but you just said, this ministry is not mine, it's God's, right? And
mm-hmm,
I think that's just so necessary a perspective that we have to keep going back to. And that's what kind of lifts us out of anxiety about different
mm-hmm.
needs that we have. I mean, when you say, "Look, God, this is yours, so if it crashes, it's on you." I'm doing whatever you want me to do, but it's really up to you. And it just lifts a lot of pressure, I think. I have to keep reminding myself. But for me, I tell myself with everything that I own, quote unquote, I own, because I believe everything that we have is the Lord's, that our
Yeah.
money is the Lord's, our home is the Lord's, our car is the Lord's, our time is the Lord's. And when we have that perspective, then we can really be cheerful givers
Mm-hmm,
and generous in many ways. So, those of you listening, you may have never heard that perspective. That is not something that's taught in the American culture. The American culture is very much, this is mine. And, I get to decide if I want more or less, or I'll try to do that. And then, hey, I'll be generous and loan my car, or I'll be generous and give you my time, or I'll be
yeah.
generous and donate here. And I think if, as believers, if we begin to have that perspective that everything in my life is the Lord, even our kids, that's the hardest one for me. I remember
Oh
the
yeah.
kids were young. I think your kids are younger, right? And just thought like, oh, my baby's yours, but please don't let her go. Don't take her, kind of thing. But I just think, yeah, when we have that perspective, the church can really, God's kingdom can really thrive and explode
Mm-hmm.
and make tremendous impact for the kingdom of God in this world. So just something. It's not like you walk up to people and give them that speech and then say, "Oh, and could you donate to my nonprofit?" So that is not the
Yeah.
speech to give, but it is something to pray for our nation right? And for ourselves and for our church and for the Christian community. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Well, is there anything else you want to share, or at least tell us how people can, I'm sure you have a website, but find out more about your ministry if they'd be interested to help out what you're doing.
Yes, of course. I think that the best thing to do is go to our website, simoneskids.org, SIMONESKIDS, and just give a one-time donation. Support the kids and give and help us keep going and serving and spreading the love of Jesus Christ to these kids who are considered unloved in their area. And so, yeah, I definitely would love for people to reach out via almost all the social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of them. We have them. And so just reach out to us with any questions. We'd love to hear from you.
That's awesome. Does the Simone's have a apostrophe in it or not?
No.
Just okay, like a plural word. Okay, that's
Well,
cool.
on the web, well, in the logo it has an apostrophe, but
Right.
in a website you don't have the
You can't
apostrophe.
do that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, do you have like one closing cool story you can tell about a kid that's gone through your program and has come out on the other side and is doing well in their adult life?
Yeah, we have a kid right now that we have his picture from when I went in 2010 as one of the first kiddos. And he is one that is with a single widowed mother. And so, definitely a situation where she was not able to afford education. And right now, he's finishing up his third year of medical school.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah. So,
In
it's
Uganda.
been in Uganda. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Awesome.
So, it's been fun to watch him prosper. We actually have 36 students right now in university programs
Oh,
that
wow.
have been
Okay.
going through the program with us. So, our mission is to ensure that every child that enters our program graduates and able to either provide for themselves and their family or attend university. And so, we definitely try to commit to each child that we will stick with them along that journey. And it's been fun. That's the people are like asking, like some of the best parts. And I was like, I love the kiddos, like the littles. Oh, they're so sweet. But the older kids, especially older high school kids and universities, they understand more like what's happened and what's going on. And so their heart for appreciation and just like getting to see your kids grow up and be successful is something really to be proud of.
Yeah, that's really. How many kids do you have all total enrolled in all your schools,
Right
approximately?
now, I think we have 650.
Wow. Wow, it's a lot. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing a great job, Lord. Well done, good and faithful servant. There you go. That's
Oh,
that's what
wow.
God would
Thank you.
say. So
I
really
appreciate
proud of you.
that.
It's awesome, Simone. And y'all, yeah, look her up and nothing else, you'll be encouraged to see this wonderful work of God. So thanks y'all for joining in and looking forward to seeing y'all next week. Have a great
Thank you,
week.
Sue.
Thanks so much, Simone.